Hey there, thanks for tuning in to Vision, the show all about the College of Arts and Sciences. I'm Lindsay Morshauser-Poe, and we've got a great show for you today. First, we're going to start things off by welcoming Dr. Mark Welsh to the studio. He's an associate professor in the Department of Biological Sciences, so welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. You're here to talk about some interesting research, and we'll get to it. We've got some great visuals too. But can you just talk about your current research in general here?
Sure. So right now we're working on three different, very different things. I'm studying these things called microsatellites using sunflowers. So I'm an evolutionary geneticist, and one of the things we're trying to understand is the role that these things might play in adaptive evolution.
Okay.
I'm also doing some work down on the Gulf Coast. We'd classify that as restoration ecology work. And then finally, I work on about 8 different species of iguanas in the Caribbean.
Okay, very interesting. And iguanas, I think maybe somebody at home would think, iguanas? Why research iguanas? So what led you to that?
Well, so when I was a graduate student at the University of Tennessee, well, one of the things I would say is that if you have a chance to work on iguanas, why would you not? But and that's exactly what happened. So I was working on a different project, and one of my office mates got a grant to go down and do a population survey of the Turks and Caicos rock iguana, and he offered me the opportunity to go down and work on that with him. So when I came to Mississippi State University, I went back to started working on iguanas again, and that's gone very well. So now I'm working on 7 additional species as well.
Wonderful. And we've got some pictures here of some of your work. Can you just talk about these pictures briefly?
Yeah. So the photos that are being shown, this is the work that's being done on Little Cayman Island, and that's the work that's being headed up by my graduate student Jen Moss.
Okay.
And some of the other folks that you saw in there were some of the undergraduates from our lab that got a chance to go down and do some field work down there this summer.
That's so neat. And your recent press has been on some of that research, right? The
That's correct.
crossbreeding of 2 different iguanas, one that's native to the island and another that's invading, basically, right?
That's correct. So the green iguanas are a huge biosecurity risk throughout the Caribbean. They are extremely adaptable. And they are just incredibly voracious herbivores, so they can really change an ecosystem when they get onto an island. So we were concerned about them getting to Little Cayman because we saw them as a competitive threat to the native species that was there. But the discovery of these putative hybrids, these potential hybrids, it makes it even more pressing because it suggests that these animals are going to actually be able to compromise the genetic integrity of the native species and potentially breed them out of existence.
And I know we do have some pictures. We're showing a few more. You were telling me about this one earlier. Someone fell in a hole there. But this is your research. And I think we've got a few pictures of the new hatchlings and how you can tell that they're kind of a cross between the 2 that are breeding, right?
Yeah, so I don't see those photos yet, but there's a couple of photos. There you go.
There we go.
The larger one there is the native rock iguana, the Sister Island rock iguana, and the one on the bottom is the one we believe to be a hybrid. And so you can see the native species is much larger than what the hybrid looks like.
Right.
And the hybrid there is about the same size as a green iguana. So those 2 animals right there are essentially the same age.
Okay.
And so there's the putative hybrid with a green iguana. And again, those animals are the same age.
Wow.
And so based on the size, so based on the morphological variation in these hybrids, so what they look like essentially,
Okay.
they're very intermediate between the 2 parent species.
And so this is kind of an issue, and I know you've gotten some data back on your research.
That's
What's
right.
the next step for you and your students moving forward? Right.
So one of the things we thought might be going on is that the hybrid was, that the mom was a green iguana. And so we have data that suggests that is the case. So the mitochondrial genome in the hybrid is that of the green iguana, and that's where your mitochondria comes from, is your mom.
Okay.
So we're fairly comfortable based on that data and some data we've gotten from the rest of the genome that it is a hybrid. The next question is it fertile? Because a lot of hybrids are completely sterile, just like mules.
Okay.
And if that's the case, it's not as big of a fear for us as it would otherwise be, because at least this means that the genetic integrity of the native species will remain intact.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you so much. We're out of time. Very interesting. I'm glad we got to see all those visuals. They're kind of cute.
Well, thank you. I think so too.
Thanks for joining us. We'll have more coming up after this short break.
Thank you very much.
A baby's arrival can be one of the most exciting times in a family's life. It can also be one of the most anxious, especially if the child's development is hindered by medical challenges that create more questions than answers. At Mississippi State University, we are leading in the study of Charge syndrome, a genetic condition that causes sight and hearing loss in infants. Our research teams are uncovering breakthroughs in treatment and prevention with a goal of greater understanding that leads to better care. We're also providing crucial support resources for parents and helping physicians around the globe gain awareness so symptoms can be detected and addressed earlier. By engaging in this groundbreaking analysis and therapy, we're not only improving outcomes, we're unlocking brighter futures.
Welcome back to Vision. We've got a great second half of the show today. Welcoming to the studio Dr. Brian Shoup. He's an associate professor as well in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay.
Absolutely. So I want to discuss your roles sort of here at Mississippi State, because you kind of wear a couple of hats.
Jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah.
So you're a professor, and we'll get to your classroom and things like that, but you're also an undergraduate coordinator.
Yes.
Why was that something that you took on? Why is it important?
Well, you know, the fact of the matter is we're a land-grant university, and the production of citizens that will help to make our state better is a very important task that I think professors at Mississippi State are charged with, and I'm very happy to be able to work so closely with our undergraduate students in order to help develop classes and help to provide advising and to do all those other sorts of things that happen in between the classes in order to help make their college careers as productive and good as they can be.
And so with that, you do things like orientation or preview days where you talk to incoming, sometimes they're like juniors in high school, right?
Absolutely. I actually just did that a couple of hours ago. We had probably over 1,000 people, I would imagine, in the Bettersworth Auditorium. And, you know, it's a chance to kind of sell Mississippi State and all the different things that we can do. It's a really great collection of people that we have here and resources, and we should be proud of it. And we should find ways to talk to as many people as we can about it.
Wonderful. Okay, so another hat that you wear, you're the faculty advisor for the Mississippi Model Security Council.
I am, yes.
Tell us about this organization first and why it's important for students.
Sure. The Mississippi Model Security Council is a really great organization. We're in our 37th year. It's an opportunity for our students to learn about international diplomacy, but it's also an opportunity for us to host, and we do this every February, a two-day conference where high school students from around our state and the region can come and sort of kind of take on and wear that hat of being a representative of a different country to kind of solve some collective sort of problem that the global community may face. I think it's phenomenally important because it helps develop a lot of skills that people may not otherwise have. A lot of people in Mississippi may not have a chance to go to a foreign country with a lot of frequency. This is an opportunity for them to really learn about it, and I think they do a great job.
And so why did you take on that role? How did you get involved? What does it mean to you to be their advisor or an advisor for a conference like that? That seems like a pretty big thing to take on with everything else that you're doing.
Yeah, you're basically an event planner. So I am available to plan weddings. But at the end of the day, it does require a lot of different sorts of skills that I've kind of had to learn. And I don't want to say that I've mastered them all. I think that there's a lot of stuff that the students who are involved in are really so good at kind of bringing to the table, social media and things like that. But I was very happy to do it because, you know, my area of research is in political sciences is not America. I study other countries. In particular, I look at the production of viable constitutional orders in places that have ethnic diversity and a various panoply of sorts of social and institutions, both formal and informal.
Okay. So talking about your research so shifting gears here, how do you take, I mean, it was an election year, right? Okay.
Yes, it was.
And I'm sure that even in non-election years, you use current events and bring them into the classroom. Can you talk about how you brought this election year into the classroom and what you think your students got out of something like that?
Sure. This is actually a difficult question to answer in one respect. This was an election that is really, in terms of the recent past, there's really very few corollaries to it. The 1828 election is probably the closest. It was incredibly bitter, and there was a very divided country. I think that a lot of our students reflect some of those divisions, and what I want is to try to find a way for us to be able to talk to each other. The civic impulse is something that's very critically important in a country such as ours, where we have so many people and so many different views. And we have to find a way to be able to understand through empathy or something else why it is that somebody believes something that they do, even if it's something that is completely the opposite of your very deeply held convictions.
Right. And so another question, kind of taking us away from that, is there's been a lot of talk since the election about, in the media, about the pollsters, the theorists, and how they got this election wrong. What's your take on that, and where do you think they go forward from here? What do they learn from it?
I have a lot of thoughts on this. I'm going to try to keep it short. My particular area of political science has always been very deeply skeptical of the polling enterprise. I think that historically polling was very dependent upon phone calls and various other sorts of mechanisms to sort of contact voters. We don't live in that world anymore. The world we live in is one that has iPads and cell phones. It makes it very difficult for us to effectively reach out and identify people in order to get very credible data about their preferences. This is shocking because the fact of the matter is, in the modern world, this sort of technology effectively allows us immediate contact with everyone. But to my mind, one of the biggest deficiencies of the modern civic project is our isolation, the fact that we hide behind screens and are not particularly knowledgeable about our fellow person. And I don't wish to say anything that would upset other political scientists, but a lot of people who study American institutions, in my own view, don't always know the subjects who they are talking to or about. They know a lot about the mathematical modeling that goes behind it.
Okay. Well, I know that was kind of a deep subject to end on. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, Dr. Brian Shoup. Please watch our next edition of Vision, and thanks for tuning in today.
Thank you.